Hey there, I'm Sarah McLaughlin. Thanks for joining me on the Chaos to Calm podcast, a podcast designed for women over 40 who think that changing hormones might be messing with their mood, metabolism, and energy, and want to change that in a healthy, sustainable, and permanent way. Each episode will explore topics related to health and wellness for women in their 40s, like what the heck is happening to your hormones, what to do about it with nutrition, lifestyle, and stress management, and inspiring conversations with guests sharing their insights and tips on how to live your best life in your 40s and beyond. So if you're feeling like you're in the midst of a hormonal storm and don't want perimenopause to be horrific, then join me on Chaos to Calm as I share with you how to make it to menopause without it wrecking your relationships and life. Hello and welcome to this episode of Chaos to Calm. I am your host, Sarah McLaughlin, the perimenopause naturopath. Today, I'm really excited to welcome Angelica Hazel Toutounji, a women's health and fertility nutritionist to the show. With a bachelor's degree in nutrition, a master's in reproductive medicine, and a certified natural fertility educator, Angelica is really well equipped to help women understand their menstrual cycle and improve their chances of conception, both naturally and via assisted reproductive therapies. But today, Angelica is actually joining us to talk about her breast cancer journey and how she is currently thriving through treatment. So let's dive in. Hi, Angelica Hazel. Thank you so much for joining us today on Chaos to Calm.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I'm really excited to talk with you today about your journey through, your ongoing journey, really, isn't it? But from diagnosis with breast cancer to thriving in treatment now. So perhaps we'll get started if you don't mind talking us through the journey so far, how you were diagnosed and how you've got to this point where you're at now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was diagnosed, I think it was Easter Thursday, with breast cancer, and I've got non-hormonal stage 3 HER2 breast cancer. Mm-hmm. So going back, I am a mum of two, a busy mum of two, and my youngest is going to be 3 in October. So I was breastfeeding her last year. I try and get to that 2-year mark with both of my girls.
Beautiful.
And she bit me. And I'm choosing to think of it as she saved my life, because I just noticed my nipple didn't heal. And it was really red raw. It was literally like someone had taken the skin off of the top of my nipple. And I was doing all of the natural things, just troubleshooting, trying to, just naturally support my body to heal. And it just wasn't going away. So I went to the doctor and she sent me to go get an ultrasound. I did that, chatting with the sonographer. They were like, yeah, it's not cancer because of this. It's all fine. Don't stress. And then, so went away, didn't think about it so much. And then a few months later, I started working at my dream job in my dream clinic at a women's health and gynecology clinic. And my nipple was still really sore. And I said to one of the doctors, I was like, hey, can I book an appointment? I've got this thing going on. And she took one look and she was like, okay, look, it could just be an infection or it could be nipple cancer. And I was like, okay, that's a pretty hard pill to swallow, but okay.
Yeah.
So she swabbed it. I came back the next week and she was like, look, it's not an infection. I'm going to send you to a friend of mine to have a look and just get that second opinion. So I saw the breast specialist, and even she wasn't too concerned. She was like, you're so young, it's so low risk. I don't really want to biopsy it if I don't have to, because that could impact, future breastfeeding and all of that stuff. And she's like, and it looks like it's healing. So maybe go away and come back. So I did that, and I can't even remember how many weeks later. But next time I came back, I noticed a lump that week. I mentioned it to her, and that day it just happened so quickly. So I remember I had a girlfriend with me. I was like, we'll go for coffee. We'll just stop by. It should be a quick thing, because every other time it was quite quick. And when I showed her the lump, she was like, all right, you're going straight downstairs, because it was in a hospital. I got a mammogram. I got multiple biopsies. So I think it was called a core biopsy. They did a lymph node biopsy, all of the things.
Mm-hmm.
So I was prodded and poked, and it was very, very uncomfortable. I remember while it was happening, like this beautiful nurse was like holding my hand, and I was just bawling. Just was not prepped for any of that. And then the next day, the doctor specialist called me, and she was like so surprised. She was like, it came back and it's cancer. So that was pretty shocking. And then I had the whole Easter weekend, I guess, to fret about it.
Yeah.
It was probably like the worst place to be in when you know something's wrong, but you don't know the extent of it.
Yes, I imagine. Yeah.
So what happened next? She booked me in with this oncologist. So I saw her with my husband about a week later, and it was just a really bad experience. She just wasn't my kind of practitioner. Very direct, very you're going to do this and this is how it's going to be, and I'm a pretty stubborn person, so I don't like being told what to do. So it was very confronting for the first appointment with someone to hear about the situation.
Yeah.
So fast forward that, I managed to, my mother-in-law actually had a contact with this amazing surgeon. So got in with her, loved her as soon as I met her. She's a really prominent Adelaide-based breast surgeon. And she works with another surgeon, and they're the only all-female team in the Southern Hemisphere.
Lovely.
Women. So Dr. Beverly Fosh, she does the removing of the breast, and Dr. Amy Jeeves does the reconstructing. So they work well. And I met her, and she gave me a hug when I first met her. And she just said, don't worry, I'm going to look after you. And I just kind of knew from that.
Yeah, that's lovely.
And then, you know, she sat me down. She explained everything really well. Like, okay, what do you know? This is, I guess, just, yeah, she was just really kind about it. And it wasn't so doom and gloom. So she got my buy-in, as in, you know, we're going to have to do this, but we want to cure you. So it was quite positive. And then she referred me to her recommended oncologist, who is a lovely man as well. And I felt heaps more comfortable just jumping in, I guess.
Yeah, it's really important, Angelica Hazel, like you acknowledge that you didn't quite have that connection with your first practitioner there. And I always tell people, like, even, you know, that's why I do like to do calls before people join my program, so you can get that connection and see, is it a good fit? Are we going to work well together? And especially with something as important as cancer support and treatment, I think it's really good for people to hear that you were like, maybe not quite the right fit, and find someone else. And it's okay to do that.
I think it's one of the biggest decisions you'll ever make.
Yeah.
And I know, you know, I was pretty proactive early on. I joined like Young Women with Breast Cancer, like a Facebook group, and connected with all these other women. And I spoke to a few ladies who went through my initial oncologist, and, you know, I was speaking with women about their experience, and everyone, I guess, they just said they were just so scared. They just wanted to do absolutely what they were told,
yes,
which I completely understand. But I think women don't, or patients in general, don't feel like they have that choice. And it's okay to ask questions. It's okay to advocate for yourself.
That's right. And I think it's especially so for women in my generation and older as well, because we were raised that, you know, the doctor is right. You just do what they say. You don't rock the boat. And you know, going for a second opinion was like, or trying a different pracky was not something that we did. And even, you know, with the people around us, there's always a lot of people pleasing in our generation as well, and not wanting to be a burden. It can feel hard to speak up and do that, but it's so important. I just want to circle back there as well. So you've seen your surgeon, you've seen the new oncologist, and was this still sort of April, or are we moving into May?
I believe it was, it happened within the space of a week, you know, probably a week and a half.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it is a super quick time frame, isn't it, with breast cancer? Yeah.
Like with both of them, I was like, when would you want me to start chemo? And I don't even know if I want to do chemo. And that
Yes.
kind of annoyed my first oncologist as well, because I was like, if, and she's like, what do you mean if? And I'm like, well, it's my body. It's
Yes.
my choice.
Yes.
So yeah, I think around April. But the other cool thing I guess I wanted to say was, just by changing oncologists, I reduced my risk of leukemia, because one of the things that didn't gel well with me was my first oncologist wanted to give me this really strong chemo drug, and she wanted to give it to me every fortnight. So then when I saw the second oncologist, I asked him about it, and he was saying he wanted to do it every 3 weeks. And I said, okay, well, what's my risk like for getting leukemia? I heard that's a thing. And he's very active with research, and he's like, well, that's why I want to give it to you every 3 weeks, because that's going to. So for me, I just felt like so much relief, like that and so much, I don't know, I was just really glad that I trusted my intuition.
It's always good to do that, to listen to yourself, isn't it? I mean, you know your body best, you know what's going to work well for you. And I think when you're a nutritionist, or like myself, a naturopath, sometimes there's that, it can be not difficult for other prackies to come on board with us, but there's those assumptions or stereotypes in the room that they may carry in, or we may carry in as well, that can get in the way of connecting and forming that relationship. So it sounds like you had a really amazing team, and you would have started your chemo, or you did start chemo. That was, I guess, your next part for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, so I did start chemo. And before I get into that, the other cool thing I just wanted to say was the beautiful nurse that was holding my hand while I had the biopsy. I found her in one of the breast cancer groups, and turns out she had gone through breast cancer as well. So that really
she had a lot of empathy then.
Yeah, so I think that really amazed me that that unfolded like that. But yes, so I went into chemo very quickly. Everyone, I feel like, one of the big things that I was nervous about was losing my hair.
Yes.
It sounds quite silly in the scheme of things, and everyone says it's only hair, which is quite frustrating when you're going through it, because, it's one thing, facing death and, having to put all these chemicals in your body, but it just sucks that you can't look like you while you're going.
You're already probably not feeling like yourself because of the side effects of the drugs, and then you're looking at yourself and feeling a bit like a stranger, I suppose, as well.
100%. So I got a chemo date, and the thing that I was really glad that I did before jumping into chemo was my hairdresser, who is just a beautiful soul. She organized to cut my hair and donate it to charity.
Oh, beautiful.
And I remember, I was so emotional when it was happening, but I think it was called Donate a Pony.
Yes.
And it's a beautiful initiative where they, she'll put your hair in braids. And because my hair was in pretty good condition, it would go to children with cancer or alopecia to make wigs.
Yeah,
so
lovely.
It was a really nice healing moment, I guess.
Yes. If you had to lose it, you were able to donate it before treatment. And just for reference for people listening, Angelica Hazel has had really long hair. Yeah, really, really long hair, and lots of it. So there was a lot of a pony to donate. And I think that's really beautiful to know that your legacy was, that was going to help another child feel good through their treatment as well. So whereabouts are you at the moment in terms of chemo?
So what I went into was, I had 4 rounds of, I think it's called AC, but it's often, the slang term is called the red devil, because it is bright red. Everyone has to completely gown up when they go near you. And when you pee afterwards, your urine is bright red. So it's quite, psychologically, it really messes with you. I was very scared going into that. So I had 4 rounds of that, and I was doing, I don't know if anyone's heard of cold capping, but basically.
Oh yes, I have, yes, but listeners might not, so please do explain.
So basically, as a way to preserve your hair, you put this, it looks like a weird scuba hat, and it basically freezes the hair follicles to try and preserve them so they don't fall out. So I opted to do that. And I remember my oncologist was like, actually my husband reminded me that my oncologist said that it doesn't work for everybody, because I didn't think that it would, I didn't classify myself as someone that it wouldn't work for.
Yes. The optimist in you.
So type A and so optimistic. So I did that for the first and second session. And you have to, I guess the worst thing about it is it adds on to your treatment time in the chair. Mm-hmm. So I think it's half an hour or 45 minutes before, and then it's like, I think similar or maybe even up to an hour afterwards.
Okay.
And it's pretty horrific. So, you know, like when your head is being frozen, it is so uncomfortable. Once it's numb, you're fine. But that process of, you know, it getting to that cold temperature is just horrific. So I did 2 of those, and then after the second treatment, my hair just started falling out in clumps, and that was very confronting.
Yeah.
So then for my third treatment, I was like, well, it didn't work. So you don't have to do the cold cap. So that was a bit of a silver lining. And then the plan was 12 sessions of Taxol, which is a different type of chemo drug. They said it was lighter, but honestly, they're all terrible and they all have their own side effects. So I did 7 of that, and I pulled the pin last week. And it was just really nice to, I guess, do that on my terms. Again, I was just listening to my body, and I just knew that I was done.
Yeah.
Taxol, one of the worst side effects with it is peripheral neuropathy. So numbness in your hands and feet, but also pain. Sometimes I can't feel my hands and feet. Sometimes they ache. Sometimes, you know, say I need to go into the freezer to get something, it really is excruciating. So I think it was last week, I was just holding my coffee cup in the morning, and it hurt to do that.
Yeah.
And I
would have made it hard to look after your children as well, I imagine.
100%. So doing that, you know, being able to type on the computer, and, you know, I hope after I get through this, I've got a long and healthy and happy life. And what they said from the start was, if it gets really bad, we need to stop because it will be permanent, and we don't know when that will be.
Okay.
So
that's important for people to listen or to hear that part of the conversation, as well as that, yes, you did decide that it was time for you to stop, but also you'd had that conversation with your health practitioners that there would come a time that it might, the side effects would get too much, and it's important to stop it there. So it's not like you just decided, no, I'm not doing it anymore.
Yeah, no, my oncologist was amazing. He basically said, you know, you've done the hard ones first. And because I've got HER2 cancer, I'm on a particular drug called Herceptin, which they have to give me intravenously for a year. But yeah, that's meant to be very effective for the HER2 type of cancer. But yeah, it was just nice to, I guess, go in there, not necessarily ask for permission, but just that I've made my decision, and then to have that supported by him was really good. He said one of the biggest issues is patients feel like if they've got, you know, 12 sessions down, that they have to complete that. So that kind of messes with your mind a little bit, because, you know, you want to give the best result, you know, you want to kick this. But then, for me, I don't know, just last week, I just had this knowing. I was like, no, I'm going to be okay, and I'm okay finishing. And it's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of me listening to myself. So
yeah, that's right. And you don't want to end up with permanent damage.
No.
That's certainly something that you want to avoid there as well. And like that, you do have a non-hormone sensitive breast cancer, I suppose, gives you some other options or a different approach as well.
It's interesting. It's rare. So like my mum had breast cancer when I was 16, but she had the hormone positive. And what they do, because of my age, like I'm only 33, another thing that they do at the start of your journey is, if you are young, they will offer you some genetic testing. And my first oncologist, which is probably what made it so hard, she assumed that I had the like one of the BRCA genes.
Yes.
And she assumed, because I was so young, that I would have genetic issues. So my first meeting with her, she was saying she's going to take my ovaries, they're going to take this, they're going to take that.
Yeah.
And I got my results probably a couple months ago. I have no genetic issues.
Oh, that's good. So that means you won't have to go into surgical menopause. They won't take your ovaries or anything like that. Okay.
Yes, so no,
Yeah, because
no,
you are
yeah.
very young. I don't know if people heard that before. You are 33, which is unusual, but it's not maybe as uncommon as what we might think. I know, like, I've always thought of breast cancer as something sort of more closer to menopause or beyond.
Mm.
But yeah, talking with Dr. Chandrika Gibson last week, she was telling me the stats, which I've already not kept in my head, but it's a larger number than what I thought of women under 50 being diagnosed with breast cancer. And certainly you like that's your situation as well. So can we talk a bit more about the risk factors or risk reducers? Because one that you mentioned earlier was that you were breastfeeding, and breastfeeding is a breast cancer risk reducer. So can you talk us through perhaps some of the other things going on in your life that would have reduced your risk? And people can certainly do, it's still worth doing all of those things if you can, for sure. Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Yeah, I guess the biggest reason I was so shocked that I got breast cancer was because I breastfed both of my girls for 2 years, which I know is incredibly supportive for reducing your risk of breast cancer. I guess family history can play a big role in it. But again, knowing I don't have genetic issues was quite surprising for me. But I'm very thankful of that. Because often if you do have a parent with with breast cancer, they will look at doing mammograms early. Whereas I think now it's maybe over 40 or something.
I think 40, yes, if there's genetic family history, yeah.
But yeah, they can encourage it early. But I mean, I'm a very healthy person. Like, I'm a nutritionist, I eat very well. I'm a metabolic balance practitioner. So I'm very thankful I was following that way of living before my diagnosis. In fact, I started on my MB journey last October and I lost 10 kilos. So that was definitely attributed to my good health as well. Very active. I don't smoke, I don't drink. All of those things can increase your risk.
Alcohol is one of the biggest risk factors, and I think that's really important because alcohol use tends to increase in women in their 40s and 50s as well. So it's good to know or talk about that it is often the elephant in the room that people don't want to talk about. But alcohol significantly increases your risk more than many other factors in your life.
Especially with like our Australian culture, it is such an elephant in the room. It's just such a thing. But I haven't drank for like 10 years.
Yeah.
That's surprising. But I guess another thing is like there's just more hormones in our food. We're exposed to more things on a daily basis, and again, I'm quite careful with this stuff. I don't drink out of plastic bottles. I don't heat plastic containers or anything like that. I buy mainly organic fruit and veg, but all of those things I guess can attribute to your toxic load. Stress.
Yeah, it's such a big blocker of health. Massive.
Yeah. I think that's probably one of the reasons that attributed to my illness, because stress. I'm a very driven person. I enjoy my work and it's hard for me to get that balance.
Yeah, I think it's the biggest blocker that I see in women's health in terms of health and happiness, weight loss, and it's such a busy society that we live in, and we have lots of tools, smartphones and things like that really help us get lots of stuff done, but also mean that we're contactable all the time, or people can make demands on us all the time, and it can suddenly pop up, in your face when you're relaxing on the weekend, and then change your thoughts and what you're doing there. And it's always a struggle, I think, a constant struggle to try and reduce your stress load, but again, taking the time for yourself investing in your self-care and looking after yourself is something that is not in the past, not necessarily encouraged. I do think the tide's turning, and that self-care and prioritizing ourselves is starting to become acceptable and okay, which is fantastic. So lots of risk reducers. Did they identify any risk factors for you, or?
They
No.
just said it's just really bad luck. That
Oh.
was that was pretty much all that they said for me, because they were just like, well, we can't work it out.
Mm. I wonder, and we'll never know the answer to ponderings and wonderings, but that you don't have the hormone dependent or hormone positive cancer, that's almost like maybe your lifestyle and everything helped that to happen. Because I assume that with the way that you support yourself and look after yourself, and we know that doing metabolic balance is really wonderful to help keep your hormones balanced and in the optimal ranges, that perhaps had a play in you having,
Yeah, who knows?
we'll never know.
I'm just very, like, from the start, I've been very much, I've never done the why me thing. It's just more like, okay, I had one day of wallowing after I met the first oncologist. I was pretty doom and gloom.
Yeah.
But it's just been kind of like, all right, this is the situation. Let's just tackle it. And
Yes.
yeah, one foot in front of the other. For me, I guess I'm very grateful that I've already got children, because when you think of a cancer diagnosis, then it's also the question of fertility, and that
Yes.
I am very into the fertility space. Yeah, I found that really interesting as well. So often, if you don't have children, it will be a question of, do you want to have children? And then they'll look at referring you to a fertility specialist with for potentially like freezing embryos or eggs or
yeah. So quite a different journey there for someone with multiple things going on, and in that rapid period, it's all kind of happens really quickly, like you were saying before, after the diagnosis there too. So what I wanted to talk to you about now, Angelica Hazel, is how to thrive in treatment. So you kind of touched on the mindset, how important that is. And I always think, I always tell my kids as well, and myself, it's important to feel your feelings, but it's when we get stuck in them that we can't move forward, or and we know that research tells us how important it is, or how powerful our mind is in our health and recovering from illness. And so that's one thing that you have going on. I always try and think about, well, what can I learn from this? Why am I going through this? What's it going to teach me? And for you, it's going to make you even more amazing practitioner, I imagine, and give you a lot of empathy for other women going through here. But yeah, can we talk about what you're doing? Because you are you looking really healthy and vibrant, and not, oftentimes we see people who've been doing chemo or going through treatment, and they aren't looking well, and their skin is sort of telling a story about what's happening inside. But yeah, you're not looking that way, looking absolutely fabulous.
I guess the first thing is, even though I have breast cancer, I've never really identified as a cancer patient. Like, it's just,
Yes.
I found early on, when I was struggling through treatment, something that really helped me was I would look in the mirror and I would just tell myself, I'm like, you're going to have a good day today. And some days you don't feel as good, but that's really helped carry me through, just that mindset of, no, like, you're all good, pick yourself up. And if I do have sad days, I let myself feel it, but I just don't stay in that space.
Yeah. So that cancer doesn't define you. It's not who you are. You're still Angelica Hazel, and you're a nutritionist, and you're a mum, and you like tea and travel and food and all those things as well. I think that's really important, and not to let it define you.
I don't want to go back to how I was. I think even women with like their pre-pregnancy body or, pre-menopause, like, we can become so fixated on who we were. I don't want to go back. I want to go forward into this next, more evolved version of me.
Yeah, that's it. Amazing. Such a great mindset to have there. And it really carries you forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. The other thing that I do is exercise has been really big. So in SA, I found there's a few different options, but I found a breast cancer specific exercise rehabilitation program that I think Calvary runs. And I signed myself up to it. And it's really cool because you do an hour of exercise and then you do half an hour meditation run by a psychologist.
Oh, beautiful.
So yeah, it's really cute. I'm doing it with lots of older women.
Yes. I
Much
imagine you
older
would be
than
the
me.
youngest person there probably. Yeah.
Oh yeah, so we're listening to like John Farnham and like, all of these poets. But yeah, that's been really good because there's lots of research on exercise and supporting you through chemo.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds crazy because, after you've got chemo, you're so tired
Mm.
and, you kind of just want to rest, but you do actually feel better when you move your body.
And so I imagine that movement is not super taxing though, like when we're not talking like a F45 or high intensity kind
No.
of workout. Yeah, I think
Right.
that's it because that
Oh,
can be super stressful on your body. But I
100%.
suppose it helps with your lymphatic flow and your lymphatic system. Yeah, and
Yeah.
helps
So
move the.
yeah. So like before all of this, I was doing KX classes, like Pilates. I couldn't
Yes,
I
yeah.
couldn't do that now. I know I don't have the stamina for it, but
Mm,
it's all physio led
yeah.
classes. So often it will be a combination of cardio with strength training. And it's just like a beautiful supportive environment. So
Mm-hmm.
whilst I don't want to be, I don't, I still like to challenge myself.
Yes.
Definitely in a different way to what I'm used to.
That's great. And it's really important to meet your body and yourself where you're at. Like, yes, like you were saying before, you might have been, super driven and exercising a particular way and pushing your body. But at this time, what your body needs is that gentler movement that supports and nourishes rather than depletes. So you've mentioned mindset, the movement, meditation. What about food or what else are you doing there?
So important. So for me, I've pretty much I've definitely kept with my principles of the metabolic balance diet just
Mm-hmm.
because that has I feel so good when I'm doing it, but I've just
Mm-hmm.
adapted it more for my situation.
Yeah.
I'm loving the whole fasting in between meals, but what I
Mm-hmm.
would do prior to my chemo treatments, there's a bit of research on either fasting or fasting mimicking diets, and that is normally
Yeah.
like before, during, and after. So before my chemo day, I would, for the first bit of chemo, I would do just water fasts, and I would break my fast with something really like nourishing after chemo, probably like, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours after. So I would
Mm-hmm.
try and do like, I don't know, 36-hour fast as long as I could do. And then
Mm-hmm.
when I moved into the weekly chemo, I was doing more of a fasting mimicking approach, which
Mm-hmm.
is low calories, plant-based, and then I would fast on my chemo day. So I would do things like I would juice my own veggies, I would have broths, I would, that kind of
Mm.
like really light food. So that was
Yes.
definitely an approach that I did. And just I focus more on certain nutrients. So I'm big on having lots of cruciferous veg because there's good research with that to support breast cancer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing things that will help naturally support detoxification. So again, lots of like fresh herbs, spices, cruciferous veg. There is some data on not having too much red meat.
Yep.
And it has to be weighed up with because often chemo it will smash so much of your cells, so iron deficiency, or you'd get really low
Yeah.
hemoglobin. So I would
Mm-hmm.
just have a little bit of really good quality red meat every now and then,
Mm-hmm.
but more I'm having more like plant-based nutrients, or more like eggs, organic chicken, just lots of veg with protein, and I guess
Yeah.
similar to candy, but just slightly modified.
Yeah. A lot of the time people lose their appetite or find it hard to eat if their mouth's sore in different cancer treatments. Has that happened for you that it's been harder for you to eat or?
I wish. I thought, when I initially got diagnosed, I'm like, awesome, I'm going to get skinny. Did not happen.
Oh,
Actually, my first oncologist was like, most breast cancer patients, so like put on a bit of weight, they're quite puffy. And
right.
I would say with the first one, when your nausea is really bad, I guess on that day and a few days after, I wasn't that hungry. But then because you're so nauseous, you just want carbs. And it was
Yeah.
really difficult because, the more the more, I guess the harder you can be on yourself. So like, I know there's a bit of more of a ketogenic style diet, and, you know, I was trying to be, not in keto because I didn't want to label it, but just go for more of a low carb approach. But it's really hard when you're just nauseous and all you want to eat is like crackers or plain.
Yes, it's kind of hark back to if you had morning sickness in pregnancy, then. And so were you able to use things like, say, ginger tea or to help with that?
Yes, but even that would, do you know what I mean? Like even that, you'd still feel pretty terrible.
Yeah.
It was just rough. And I think sometimes what isn't talked about is like, yes, there is definitely dietary strategies that work, but then it's also got to be weighed up with your mental health. So sometimes
absolutely.
Things, not because of the nutrition that it has, but just because it's okay to do that every now and then, and just to listen to what you feel like. So,
and I'm sure, and there's different qualities of carbs and that as well, and even as we know, like having a little bit of protein before that carb can really help protect your blood sugar levels and insulin as well. So I'm sure subconsciously those things were influencing what you were doing there as well. So but it's obviously working. Like I said, you're looking great. Is that you're a nutritionist, so you don't do herbal medicine, but you do herbs as food as medicine. Is there any in particular that you've been focusing on?
All of them. I'm just trying to think what I had. So I thought for a naturopath early on, and I was definitely getting some liver herbs, and that was supporting me all through treatment. I did green tea extract. I did curcumin. I was having Nigella sativa, which is like the black seed oil. There's good evidence in that for cancer. Just trying to think what else I've had. So many things. So many different herbs and supplements. Turkey tail, like a medicinal mushroom.
Yes.
If I'm making a smoothie or anything, there's some good research on that. I'm very big on using herbs and like superfoods as much as I can. So
I think it's really great when we can harness the power. I mean, obviously we both work in a particular way that we're using food as medicine, but we have to eat and we have to fuel our body. So why not harness that power and add those functional foods to what we're doing and power it up, so to speak. Before we finish up, Angelica Hazel, is there any final messages or anything else that you want to add for the listeners?
I guess the biggest thing that I would say is that if you've got something going on in your body, whether it's your breast, whether it's anything, and you feel like something's not right, even if you go to the doctor and they they say, no, you're fine, it's okay to get a second opinion, and it's okay to advocate for yourself. And often with things like cancer, people want to forget about it. It's too scary to kind of look into it. But the biggest thing that will help you to survive is early detection. Yeah. And if you go through the whole process and you don't have it, amazing. I'm so happy for you. But it's just better to be safe than sorry.
I think that is amazing advice. It's really spot on, that it can feel really scary and big, but early detection is really key. And so that's super important there. And also regardless of age, because we see it a lot with perimenopause and menopause. Oh, you're too young to be going through that. That's what, I've been told that. I know lots of clients have been told that. You even got told that with breast cancer, not to worry about it, that it probably wouldn't be that because you're too young. So I think it was so powerful if we tune into our bodies. We know our bodies the best. We've lived in them the longest. And if something doesn't feel right, then do follow it up. So thank you so much for sharing your time with us today and your story with us there as well. And all those wonderful things that you've shared about how you've thrived in treatment. We had your mindset, meditation, movement, food, and those functional foods that you've researched there. And I will pop into the show notes your links so people can find out more about you and get in touch with you there, Angelica Hazel. And just once again, thank you so much
for having me. It was awesome chatting with you. I guess I was just wanting to say, if there is anyone out there that's going through breast cancer and they're feeling alone and they want to chat, you can reach out to me. anytime. I understand what it's like. So yeah, please don't feel like you're going it alone.
Thank you. That's so generous of you. Beautiful. Wow. Angelica Hazel's story is amazing. Like, we think about how young she is, all those risk reducers that she has going her way, and how she's approaching her breast cancer treatment is just really inspiring, I think, with what she's doing. And just to recap, we talked about how she came to be diagnosed, and seeking those second opinions or following up and going back. And when she felt that things weren't right in her body is really important at any age that's appropriate. And I know it's harder for us in our generation when we're told not to rock the boat and not to do things like that. But, you do know your body best. You've been in it the longest. And if it doesn't feel right, please do go follow that up. We talked about some risk factors, particularly alcohol, and how it's the biggest risk factor or increases your risk of breast cancer. And we went through Angelica Hazel's tips on how she's thriving in treatment, thinking about your mindset, and certainly feeling, and your feelings are always valid, and not getting stuck in that. The movement that supports and nourishes your body and helps support your treatment. She's also connected in with a community. It's something we didn't quite touch on, but within doing the movement with the breast cancer team, she's connecting with other people going through treatment, and community is a really big factor for success in many aspects of health and healthcare, and meditation and food as medicine there as well. So they're all the things that have combined really well for Angelica Hazel. Along with fasting. And so I would encourage you, if you're going through breast cancer or some other cancer treatment, to reach out to a natural health practitioner that can support you. And, we're not trying to cure cancer or anything like that from our perspective, but support and nourish your body so that your immune system and your body can do what it needs to, and you help increase your odds of surviving your cancer diagnosis. So thank you so much for sharing your time with us today here on Chaos to Calm podcast. I really look forward to speaking to you next time. It's really common for women over 40 to experience the chaos of changing hormones, mood, metabolism, and energy. But I hope you know now that common doesn't have to equal normal for you or them. You can help others understand they aren't alone in feeling this way, and that perimenopause doesn't have to be horrific, by subscribing, leaving a review, and sharing this podcast with other women in their 40s and beyond. Thanks so much for listening and sharing your time with me today in this Chaos to Calm conversation.